I cannot wait for Bridgerton season 3, and so to celebrate its arrival, I am going to be reading the book that it's based on. Hello, my name is Chloe. Welcome to Recovering Book Snob, where we learn to love reading again without the snobbery, or at least with less snobbery. I've never read any of the other Bridgerton books. I've only watched the first 2 seasons, and to be honest, when I first tried to watch it, I did not enjoy it. I don't think I realised that it was Regency romance, and I just wasn't in that zone. But I then found myself in a time of emotional need. I needed to cocoon myself in a weird, completely unlike my life, fantasy, comfort world, and Bridgerton came calling for me again. And this time I watched it, and it was exactly what I needed. I had such a good time. I still find myself cringing at points, but it wins me over with the intense love speeches that the characters often give each other. I assume a lot of people have read the books, hence why a show was made after them. I know that they're in a series. If it's a bad idea, just diving straight into a book without having read the earlier books, don't tell me because it's too late. It's happening now. In terms of why I'm doing this, mostly general intrigue. I am really curious as to what the Bridgerton books will be like, especially because they're from a couple of decades ago. I wonder how they've aged, and I also wonder how similar they are to the show, whether the characters that I read about in these stories will feel like the ones that I've gotten to know over the last 2 seasons. I then hope to watch season 3. I think it should be out by the time I finish this book. Another reason why I want to read this book is I hate Colin. I really don't like Colin Bridgerton, and this book is around the love story between Colin Bridgerton and Penelope Featherington. And I can't pinpoint exactly why that means I want to read the book, but I have a kind of rage around the idea of them getting together. I'm not obsessed with her. I quite like her. I think she's a flawed, ambitious woman. But him, at the very best, is nothing to me. At the very worst, is quietly sinister and actually not a respecter of Penelope. So I'm intrigued as to how his personality is going to get rehabbed in the book and then in the show. Anyway, I'm getting pretty carried away. I should probably get going with this book. I've never read Regency romance before, and I kind of didn't realise the genre was as big as it is, but hopefully I'll survive it. Hello, we are halfway through, and well, 2 things actually. Number 1, I thought that season 3 was coming out on Valentine's Day for some reason, and it's in fact coming out. There are people arguing on my street. And it's in fact coming out in May, so that was a miscalculation. I don't know why I fixated on that date. I think it's because loads of promo came out on this day. Anyway, I'm a fake fan, clearly. It's actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I quietly thought that it might be a bit kind of spoon-feedy. Ever since reading It Ends With Us, I am a little bit scarred. But no, this is really solid. It's a very quick, easy read. There's a good amount of drama, a good amount of tension. Like, I don't feel at any point there's been a lull in pace. It also feels like the show is really, really true to the books. So I'm curious as to what, like, the complete stans who've read all the books and have watched the show think. I have to say, it is a bit weird reading in the books. It talks about how incredibly charming Colin is, and in the show, the first 2 seasons, like I spoke at the beginning of this video about how I don't really like him, he's not very charming. I feel like he takes himself way too seriously. That's how he's portrayed in the show. He kind of takes himself really seriously, and it is a bit dull. He doesn't have that much to say, which obviously I'm happy to see a character arc. I'm happy to see him become more interesting, but that's not really happening in the book. And even in the book, it talks about how charming he is, but it doesn't really portray him as actually charming. It's definitely an example of telling, not showing. It talks a lot about the rumours, how well known he is as someone who's like always got a funny thing to say, always makes you feel at ease, all this stuff. But all of our interactions we've had with him, like, he hasn't been great. Nevertheless, I don't mind him. I still don't really want them to end up together, so let's see what happens. Reading this book has also made me think a lot about misogyny, because there's obviously quite a lot of misogyny in this, in that, like, they're in a society where women can't have dreams and all that, and I was a little bit worried that, especially because this book was published in 2002, I was a bit worried that there would be quite a lot of misogyny in it, but I don't really find there is. I think for me, the marker, a book can be set in a certain time or in a certain culture. The question for me is always, like, how full are the female characters, and like what angle is the misogyny approached with, and it seems alright in this so far. Some of the women have a lot more anguish in their hearts. There's quite frequent discussion around how women don't have the option to choose someone to marry, how once they get to a certain age they're kind of considered irrelevant and on the shelf, and you get to learn about the frustrations. Now let's see how it ends. I thought these books were quite mild. I didn't think they were that scandalous, but I've just reached a carriage scene, so I guess not. And to be honest, I usually really don't like those scenes. I find them cringe, but this one was fine. It didn't repulse me. So yeah, points for Bridgerton. I've finished romancing Mr. Bridgerton, and I really enjoyed it, especially now I've completed it. I'm just left with this warm, fuzzy feeling, such a glow. I think a huge part of that I did see in the show, and now it comes through in the book as well, is the relationship between the Bridgerton siblings and also their relationship with their mum. They are all just so close and tease each other, and they're kind of strong-minded, and it's just really lovely. And it's something that surprised me in a romance book, but also Regency. You expect them all to be really stiff, and obviously I don't care if that's not realistic for the time that it's meant to be portraying, and it definitely impacted my overall experience of the book. Also, there were a few more sexy scenes, or spicy scenes as the booktube people say, and I thought they were really solid. I don't know, like, I don't think I'll ever be someone who loves them, but I didn't cringe. I didn't cringe in the way that I've cringed with basically every other romance that I've read with those scenes. So thumbs up from me. There were tiny moments that felt a bit misogynistic, or like leaning into misogynistic tropes, but overall, again, I thought this book was really refreshing. I'm still really curious as to how Colin will be in the later season. I definitely warmed to him a bit, but similar to how I felt about Anthony, people are very forgiving of their moods and their rage, but I think that the line was ultimately walked quite carefully, quite well with Anthony. And I assume a similar thing will happen with Colin in the show. I think it's really fun how each season focuses on a different Bridgerton child and a different romance. So if it's your season, you get this massive glow up that a lot of people joke is just like really extreme, and they're wondering what witchcraft the directors are doing to achieve it. But I have seen a lot of Penelope Colin videos recently with all the promos, and they are looking extremely glowed up, so I'm interested as to whether there's a personality glow up as well, and whether Colin will finally have my heart. I love a little makeover, like I'm just a sucker for that, and maybe I'm deeping it, but the glow up idea I like, because you see it come through in this book in particular, because Penelope is meant to be unattractive, but as Colin falls in love with her, she becomes like really beautiful, and he's kind of like, how have I not noticed this before? She's so beautiful. And I like to think that's what the show's trying to achieve through whenever they're following the love for that season of these two characters, those two characters then become really beautiful, because it's like when you're in love you glow more, but also the person that you love glows more. Okay, I'll see you in 3 months then. The time has come. Bridgerton is here. I don't know how many months ago you would have last seen me. 3 months? Can't remember. Anyway, I have kind of forgotten my experience of the books a little bit, and I'm also a little bit worried. I'm worried because a lot of the content that I've been seeing, a lot of the clips, have not given me a lot of hope that the Colin glow up is gonna work on me. I can see that he has a more jawliney jawline. It's definitely a lot sharper, and he's got a kind of riz. He's got a sort of Colin riz. I can see in the show from the clips that they're trying to give the impression that he's a bit more charismatic, now he's worldly. But at the very least, Bridgerton's always a good time. I have a lot of faith that I'm gonna enjoy myself, and I can just hate watch him. If I don't like him, I can just hate watch him. Aside from that, the main clips that I have been seeing are, what's her name? Nicola Conklin, and what's his name? Nick? Colin's character being interviewed, and I do love watching those interviews. She is incredible and he is lovely, and together they just have really beautiful chemistry, and I feel like they're gonna have a lot of chemistry in this season on screen. Like, how could they possibly not after some of these interviews? I don't know if you've seen these interviews that I'm talking about, but they're just clearly so comfortable with one another. I'm gonna watch them now. I'm gonna go watch it and I'll tell you how I find it. We've just seen Colin's entrance and I'm already, I mean, I said already I was concerned. Now I feel like he's got one foot in the grave in my mind. I'm cringing so much. But it is fun to be back watching Bridgerton. It's just such a visually, I find the outfits and the sets sort of ugly, like sort of too much, but it's really fun to watch. Like, some of the dresses are borderline neon. Anyway. Hello, I have finished the part 1 series episode dump. I think it was 4 episodes. I binged them, so I honestly lost track. And I have a lot of half-baked thoughts. I'm gonna try not to subject you to all of them because there are a lot. The first main point that I have is just that I feel like visually the show has really come on. You could really tell that they were trying out new angles, and the costume I feel is just getting better and better with each season. I also really like all of the subplots. I feel like Bridgerton has a lot of subplots that you forget about, but they're quite nicely woven in and they're never confusing. You've got the owner of the club whose son has just become a baron. You've got a few other romances sprouting here and there, and I just think they're always welcome. And if you feel like the story, the main plot is lagging a bit, you always get a little bit of respite from those. I don't know, it's just a really nice balance. I also just thought that I was struck by, and these are all things that I felt through the book, but the show is very true to the book in this sense. The siblings just have such a warmth, and the mum is great as well. Like, the whole Bridgerton family, I just want to be a part of them. They're also really hot. Obviously that's not a driver for me wanting to be their sibling, but it's an observation I have, especially Francesca. Everyone's been joking about how she's got like massive iPhone face, like her face has definitely seen an iPhone, and it's true, but I also don't really care very much. She's really cute. I can't believe the actor is, I think the actor is late 20s. I think her face does look like that, but I just think she's really good at nailing Francesca's demeanour. I think overall Bridgerton is kind of underrated for the quality of the acting. You get the odd dud, but it's definitely carried by some very strong performances. I do think that Nicola is very talented. I've been watching Derry Girls recently and that's been a real pleasure. Moving on to my next point, which is that Colin was pretty agonising. I was very relieved to see that, I mean, who knows in the second part. But I was relieved to see that he doesn't have the same level of anger as he did in the book. I think obviously you want to have multifaceted characters. People are allowed to be angry, people are allowed to be flawed, but in the books it's kind of given a bit of a boys will be boys treatment, and he's really angry but it's forgiven very easily and it's not really seen as much of an issue, whereas they've really dialed down how angry he is in the show. And although it's very clear that he's been really immature and is kind of immature and insensitive, he's not volatile and kind of violent. Having said that, I do not like his personality. I found it really ironic when his mum, there's this part in episode 4 even maybe, where his mum is kind of advising him on Loki, his love for Penelope, but neither of them have said that out loud. And she's kind of saying, you know, you always do stuff for other people, you're always looking out for others and putting them before you, like just this once, put yourself first. And I understand why that speech was there, because it's kind of meant to be this rousing little phrase that makes him take action and makes him declare his love, but I just thought it was completely inappropriate. He had spent the last how many episodes yapping about himself, and I find him, out of actually all of the main characters, by far the most self-involved. So I just thought it was kind of funny, the way the mum was trying to be like, you think about other people too much. And I honestly am not convinced that he's really thought of anyone else. I even think the way that he compliments Penelope, often they're just about how he feels when he's with her. And again, it's fine sometimes to tell people how much you appreciate them, how much you feel that they've impacted your life. I think that's lovely, but he, without fail, will bring it back to himself. I also thought visually, he was very odd looking to me. In all of the interviews, the actor looks like a pretty regular person, and then seeing him on screen, I'm seeing a lot of jokes on social media about him having a lip flip. It's all a bit strange. He's looking a little bit, what's it called? Uncanny Valley. Sorry, does that mean? It is mean. Such tall hair is another point. Yeah, honestly, I don't have much more to say other than it's making me want to go to balls.